All right, well, I think it's time to get going here. I've got a lot of things to talk about. It's going to be a little bit different this time around since I'm pretty much talking to a camera and there's not a whole lot of voices coming back at me other than the ones that are in my head. I'm going to be sharing with you just some, fielding some of the questions that we received through emails and just kind of answering and clearing up some of the challenges we've had on the startup. But most importantly, giving you guys the encouragement to get the ball rolling if you haven't. For those members who have already gotten this project started, I'm excited that you're moving forward with us. The first thing I want to mention is that if you are currently watching and you need to ask a question, the best option we have for you right now is to post that question through the actual Google site that we're broadcasting from. The link that we put on our website, we had a little bit of a miscommunication, no big deal, but it is the live feed that is being broadcast through the YouTube channel. So if you're watching from there, all you have available is the chance just to watch. You don't have a way to interact from that vantage point. So I encourage you to jump over to the Google. If you're a Google Plus member, you should be able to find it. You just look up Andy Chidwick. In the future, we'll have a little bit more of a direct link, and I'm going to work hard on getting a little bit more interactive chat room. I have heard some people say that they can hear me well, and that's good. We will also be upgrading some of our equipment to make the sound a little bit better yet. However, David, you've found your way to post a couple of questions already. I also sent you directly an invite, so if you sign in on that, you actually might be able to post with some audio too. So that might be fun. I encourage you to go check that out. The first thing I want to address for those of you who are coming to the session, whether it's currently live or one of the pre-recorded sessions that you're just going to review. The first thing I want to make sure is we clear up is any concerns over accessibility. Our site behind the scenes has quite a bit of very different levels of permissions that are granted to different users, and we had a little bit of a glitch in the system, so many users were kind of being excluded from the membership level that they had signed on at. So I want to just first of all ensure that everyone who has signed on as a member, a paying member, is getting the access to the videos and the content that you've paid for. So I would pose the question, if anyone hasn't yet at this point, you should shout it out, you should give me an email, you should somehow be in communication with me. I think we've resolved all the glitches that we had originally, but at this point there could still be some residual problems that people haven't been able to work through. So we're here to help. We've just returned about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago from our time on the woodworking show circuit. It was a great time for us to be out and about. Literally, we traveled all over the country and spent, I don't know, somewhere around 70 nights in hotels and put on about 25,000 miles on our car, and it was the best experience for us. We're going to be continuing on with the woodworking shows, so we're looking forward to making that connection again with you. If you haven't been in attendance to any of the shows, I do highly encourage you to be part of that when it gets to your area, or at least as close as we can get to your area, because the show's growing and there's a lot of new things we're going to be doing with the show in the years to come. So make sure you keep on board with that, and once a year refresh your energy by attending the shows and seeing some of the different things that the shows have to offer. So the accessibility is going to continue to be something we're working through. We want to make sure that when you have signed up for something that you have access to it, and right now you should be able to see, if you are a member of the Major League, you should have access to about 3 videos right now, including actually a 4th video, including our introduction. The videos we've filmed most of this project, and we're editing all those as we go. We're going to be posting video number 4 and number 5 here real soon. So I'm excited about putting those out. There's a lot of information in those. So if you're not keeping up the pace, I would highly encourage you to jump on board and check it out. Now, for those of you who are watching and you're not yet a member, I do want you to consider what it would be like to be part of a membership here. We are offering the access to these builds. These are actual projects that you can work through step by step. You've got every bit of information you would need, from the videos to the templates to the content, and you should be able to make it through. Now, one thing we will be talking about today, a number of people have expressed a little concern about their tooling and what kind of tooling they're going to need. So I'll try to spend some time talking about that. But please let me know if you're still having any problems with the accessibility. Now, okay, so, oh, Tim, I see Tim's here with us. Thank you, Tim, for posting. I got my monitor over here so I can take a look at who's here. Thanks, Tim, for letting me know you're here. So I'm going to start off by answering a question or two. Let's get over here. Hang on. All right, so I'm selecting that question. Let's see if this chat feature works well. The question that I think Dave, who is it that posted that one? Sorry, hang on. Yeah, David Knight. The question is, how long does it typically take, or how long do you typically spend building a chair with this process? I do want to make sure that I'm keeping you guys well informed. The sculptural world is a very challenging process. It's exponentially longer than just your typical project. You could put together milled parts on a chair and be done fairly quickly. But because we put so much effort into the handwork, the sculptural part, the tooling, the detailing, the transitions, there's a lot of extra handwork that is put onto these chairs, or any project that we're working on. Right now, obviously, we're working on a chair. So it's hard to directly answer. It's going to take you, X amount of time. Most people want to know what kind of time to budget for this. I've gotten to the point where chair like this one that we're working on, I could probably put together in about a week to 10 days if I was working solid on it. What's solid? An 8-hour day or so. We'll be able to, get the parts together in about approximately a solid work week. And now, if you're doing this part-time or stretching that out, or being a weekend warrior, obviously it's going to take a little bit more time. The joinery part shouldn't be all that difficult. It's really the sculpting part that takes a lot of extra time. Now, I will be spending a lot more time teaching joinery. Teaching the sculptural work probably in the next live session or beyond. I'll do some work here right in front of you so you can see the process even live, not even in an edited format. The intention is to see the body posture that I might have in that sculptural process, maybe some of the tooling or the motion with the hands. So there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to need to learn in that process. So just in to summarize, you're probably going to be a week to 10 days on a project if it's on its own for this dining room chair. You could be a lot longer than that if you're working on something like the rocking chair. Usually takes me about 2 weeks. So it's a bit of an extra effort. It's a labor of love, by all means, Dave. Good question. Most people want to know how much time they're going to need to budget to invest in this. My assumption is the dining room chair project, you're going to want to maybe do one as a prototype and then learn how to build this more in a set. I will answer a question I've heard people ask me, is it better to do, if you're doing a dining room set, do I do one at a time or do I do them all at the same? There's kind of a balance between that, halfway between that, I would say, because if we do one at a time and something goes wrong with one of the design, one of the scenarios, maybe my board is a little short and I have to compromise some of my measurements, then I got one chair that's not quite the same as the others, right? But if I get all of them going all at once together, I tend to kind of get overwhelmed with all the parts and pieces and which leg belonged to which seat. So my compromise when it comes to a volume of chairs that I might be working on, maybe a set of 6 or 8, as I start off the process a little bit more systematic. I make the same judgments on grain and the decision on the character of the wood, and I certainly label well. One of the most important parts is to make sure that I label my parts really well and keep them grouped and organized that way. After the point of getting through the basic joinery of all the parts and pieces, where I'm past most of the problems where I might likely make mistakes, the rest of it is the sculptural process, and I allow that to be an individual experience. So I do all my milling, all my joinery all at once, so all my parts are done together, and then my sculptural work is done individually. That way I can feel like I get through the stages and accomplish everything I need to on that individual chair and treat it with the respect it deserves, and then I move on to the next set. So I'll let you decide what you want to do with this project. Are you going to just build the one and maybe make it a standalone chair? We might have to compromise at this point. If you really are trying to make a full set, then maybe this is a chance to do the one and then kind of follow through and do the other 5 or the other 7 or whatever it is you might want for your set. Just to remind you, we are going to be working through a lot of different projects over the course of the years to come. We're starting off with the dining room project, dining room chair project, and the bar stool, and we're also going to be doing the some other work around that this year. Then we progress into different parts of the house. Thematically, we want to kind of go into different rooms so we can create different objects. So this is going to be a fun place to really get a lot of work behind us and let this kind of work work through us. I really think this is an artistry. It's a little bit more than just production work. So hopefully that'll get you to a new stage of confidence in your artistic ability. Okay, so hopefully that answered Dave's question. That was a long way around it, but looks like Tim, let's see, Tim just said that you can see and hear, so there's not a whole lot there at this point. Let's see, we're going to be heading into some, in my next couple videos, some joinery. I want to give you a little heads up as to what this is going to look like. We're going to be in lesson 4 and 5, heading into a little bit of the sculptural process of learning how to sculpt out the seat, and doing some of the joinery on the side parts of the seat itself and the legs. I want to make sure that everyone is fully aware of the importance of this jig. This is the first lesson we talked about, and if you haven't made this jig, you're going to need to make it sooner or later. It's going to come get you here in a little bit if you don't have it. Basically, lesson 1 is the first jig. Now, there are actually a couple more jigs that we're going to need. I kind of, for the sake of not making that video too long, just talk about this one. Partway through this process, I will give you some instructions on a couple more jigs, primarily our crosscut sled. That's pretty important, and if you don't have a crosscut sled, I do want you to have that available pretty soon. So we'll be spending some time on that. I'll make a separate video for the crosscut sled. So jigs are very important to this whole process, because if we don't have them, we are not able to accomplish a lot of specialty cuts. It gets even more complicated when we get into more advanced joinery and different angles. The thing I didn't mention is this jig is going to also serve as the potential for some other options when it comes to straightening an edge of a board, for example. A number of people have talked about their lack of tools and what we're going to do about that, and that's probably a good subject to spend talking about right now. The lack of tools. One of the, I'm trying to remember who mentioned it, just in an email here recently, said that they didn't have a joiner. And the joiner is, as you saw in one of my videos, the second video I think, is a pretty integral part of this process of doing the specialty work. You know, we're kind of dressing the parts down into smaller sections so that we can use those pieces and join each one of those pieces individually. I highly encourage you not to join your whole board As I mentioned in that video, it's going to be a problem if you join the whole board and you make it too small. We don't have the thickness that we need. So when we break down the parts and the component parts, we have smaller pieces to work with. Let me pull up an example here. There we go. There they are. You might recognize these from the video here. These are the front legs to a chair, for example. Small enough piece that I can get away with a fairly small joiner. I don't need to have a fairly large joiner, but I do need to have that reference surface. Now, what if I needed to make that reference surface but without a joiner? What can I do to make that without a joiner? Well, this jig itself does serve in a limited capacity. I'll certainly admit that. This jig, this back leg angle jig that we made before, could be adapted. You remember on this jig, it runs on that center runner. By the way, one of the limitations in my setup today is that I can't really move my camera work. We'll have that fixed in the future, so I'll have multiple cameras that I can switch between when I head over to my table saw. So for today, I'm kind of limited, but in the future, we'll be able to jump around the shop here. This runner is going to be guided by the miter slot, right, on either the left or right side of the plate. So this edge is a zero clearance trimmed edge according to the size of your table. Your table saw will be trimming that right off, right on the edge of the blade. So theoretically, if you are missing a joiner, you didn't have the ability to join a straight edge, this jig would certainly serve that function. In the same way that we would lay this down on our table saw to trim a joint edge on a really oddly shaped piece, same concept applies if I needed to take this edge and lay it down. Maybe it was a rough sawn edge, and I would lay that down, clamp it down. You might put a backstop here with some toggles on it, or do my a real simple system here with the through bolts. At that point, you can clamp this down and trim that edge. Right? By trimming that edge, that gives you a straight edge, a straight reference from this plane or this surface. So that's a possibility that might be able to help you get through some of the joining issues. If you have a planer but you don't have a joiner, that's even better, because you can take and flatten a board on a planer. You can actually take the planer and treat it as if it's a joiner. The way to do that is to take a carrier board and shim below the twist or underneath the rough sawn area of that board, and just fill in the gaps till it doesn't wobble anymore. And you run that through the planer, and that carrier board will serve as a flat reference surface in the pass on the joiner, flattening the top of the board. Then we'll pop that off the sled, put that sled away, flip it over, and run that flat side down through the planer. I did make a video. It's sitting on our on the free site. You should check that out. That should help answer a few questions when it comes to how can I use my planer as a joiner. And in this feature here, we're also using our table saw as a joiner. These are compromises by all means, but options. Another option, if you don't have a joiner, well, you can get a small one. A tabletop joiner, they're not that expensive. A little 6-inch one will certainly suffice for small parts like this. Now, is it a long-term solution for longer stock material? By all means not. But it's lighter weight. You can move it around. It's something that you could probably get into fairly cheap. Just make sure that you test it out. Make sure that it's going to run well and that it's truly a square. You can create a square surface. I can't emphasize enough how important that is to be able to dress these pieces down so that I can really predict square references. Okay. I'm going to look over here, and I see Tim. You say you can view the videos but cannot download. Are they locked? That's a good question. I'll click on that. The intention, Tim, answering your question here, the intention is that the videos are downloadable. They may at the moment not be. Now that I think about it, I think there's a a switch that we can click on to make them downloadable. Because they are being housed on the Vimeo site, we're putting all of our protected content on the Vimeo site. We started off with pretty high-level protection on that, and then we're working our way down to make sure it's available. So I do appreciate the reminder. The intention is for you to be able to download them, because at some point your membership, you might decide that you don't want your membership anymore, but the intention is that the content that you've paid for is yours. So I appreciate the reminder on that. I will address that and make sure that those are downloadable for those members who have paid for it. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that reminder. Okay. So where was I? We're talking about limitations of tools. Though these tools are fairly important, joiner, planer, table saw, bandsaw, you can get around some of them. Now, the ones that I would really say are just pretty critical in terms of stationary tools, it's going to be difficult to do any of this without a table saw. The bandsaw is a pretty helpful tool. We've got a lot of parts and pieces that we're going to shape out. It would be very difficult to do this with a jigsaw, though it's possible. The problem is we're dealing with a lot of 8/4 stock material, and it behaves a little differently with a jigsaw or a scroll saw. Don't forget, though, if you're limited on tools, I understand that. Tools are hard to come by sometimes. By all means, you can make friends with people who have tools. It's like having, a relative who's got a boat. You can certainly tap into some possible resources there, bandsaw or joiner or table saw, whatever you're missing. So don't forget to explore the possibilities of, maybe having to go over to a friend's house, a family member to borrow a tool. That's not too difficult. The other option is there might be a business that has an available tool that you can come in there and ask for a specialty cut or a certain mill. I suppose those are options, though after a while that might get frustrating. For every time you need to make that happen, you'd have to go back and forth. One thing I do want to encourage you, though, is to find out where you can get involved in a club or guild. It's one of the best resources, because oftentimes you can find out where there are co-op shops. Maybe you can buy into a membership and get access to a whole shop full of tools that you might not otherwise have. A club, some sort of guild, really is also a great way to rub shoulders with one another and to get to glean a lot of information from other people. I can't tell you how much I grew as a woodworker when I was part of the Guild of Oregon Woodworkers when I lived over in the Pacific Northwest area. It's what really kind of lit the fire for me. So if you're missing some tools or needing some support in some of these processes, definitely spend a little bit and get yourself into a membership on a local club or guild. I just can't imagine you would ever regret that, and you might have access to a few new resources. That being said, this is not just absolute beginner woodworking levels. You probably might need to invest in a couple tools. So I will do my best to help you guys get through some of that. I realize that not always the funding is available, but we'll see what we can get through. So the biggest one, though, the joiner, that I know a lot of people kind of come up missing on. There are a couple options: the table saw and the planer, to work those two different edges. The table saw will always be your best bet for joining an edge, right? An edge like so. And the planer will serve as a alternative option for joining a face. You never want to join a face on a table saw. That would just be too difficult. Now, again, all these things are compromises, by all means. I'm not trying to suggest that this is a better way or anything. I'm just trying to give you options if you are struggling with limitations of your tools. Okay, Robert, good to see you. Thanks for posting a question. And again, I'm going to ask answer Robert's question here in a minute. But again, if you've just joined us, it looks like a couple people have been coming on and off here. The video that we're doing today, and probably today only, is being broadcast both through our Google Plus account, and it's being broadcast through the YouTube version. If you're on the YouTube version, you pretty much are just going to be watching. If you are on the Google Plus, you can interact. We have a question and answer session that you'll be able to post a question, and I'll be able to answer it for you. This will probably be where we spend more of our time, but our link on our site, unfortunately, is only to the YouTube. So if you want to get onto the Google Plus and look up Andy Chidwick, that's where our site is. We'll probably ultimately move that over to our Chidwick School account as well. Okay, Robert, what kind of wood besides walnut would you suggest? Is soft maple okay, or would you suggest hard maple or even cherry? Yeah, I'll answer that question. That's a good question. So the issue that is at hand is the concern over the wood. What kind of wood to use? Robert's asking what kind of wood, basically. We certainly don't need to all do walnut. Walnut, in my opinion, however, is one of the easiest ones to learn on. But not everybody likes the color of walnut or the look of walnut. The benefit of it is it sands well, it shapes well. It's kind of the Cadillac of woods when it comes to the sculptural process. But it's not for everybody. Now, the second one that I would recommend, if you're just wanting to stick with a domestic, would be a good cherry. A cherry is going to have ruddy tones, a little bit more good patina to it. It'll have a lot of character over the amount of time, and generally speaking, cherry is not that hard to get or not that expensive. Whatever grade or whatever wood you get, make sure you get a good quality grade, something that's more than just your stock material from the local construction lumber yard. If you can go to a specialty place and get something of a good figured or high grade character, man, you are just gonna just never look back. You're gonna find that that's just a beautiful wood to work with. The nice thing about it is once we get past the joinery stages, we really don't have much to worry about in terms of the workability of the wood, because sculptural work is a lot of grinding and hand tools and things like that. We don't have a ton to worry about when it comes to grain direction, past maybe a spoke shave or things like that you might be working with. Earlier on, when we do a little bit of the joinery, yeah, it can be an issue, especially on the milling. If you're dealing with a hard maple of some sort, you're going to run into some issues where the maple itself has got so much grain direction, going different directions. You're going to have a lot of issues with tear out. There are ways to sneak around that, and I'll certainly help you out by giving you specifics. I think that the big thing at this point is many of you are just now starting the project, and I want you to be able to pose specific questions relative to your actual work when it comes to challenges you might be experiencing. That way we're all going to learn. Oh, and by the way, one thing I do need to mention, we're really close to launching the forum aspect of our website. Our forum will be embedded, hopefully, this has been the problem, rather than just a generalized forum, we want each forum to be project related. And so that's what we're working on to make sure that we do that properly. That within the context of the project that we're working on, we're going to create a forum that you can ask questions. You don't have to wait for the question and answer session. That you'll be just putting that picture, maybe a picture up of where you're stuck. I will be able to help you. Maybe others that are part of that forum will be able to help you as well. So it'll slowly build to a community. But I would, if you're not interested in walnut, Robert, I would say the best thing would be, a cherry or, a maple is, if it's just a hard maple, the return for the value on it, in my opinion, is not as great. If you had a character grade maple, though, it's well worth the extra work. A character grade maple being like a fiddleback or a tiger maple or quilted maple or anything like that. The benefit of that is just outrageously amazing and beautiful work. So if you're just going for regular maple, unless you're really into the light wood, it doesn't have a ton of great value as far as my opinion goes on that. Though it does have some grain movement that you can do some of those mapping out and details that we talked about in one of my earlier sessions there. But Boy, man, a cherry. I guess that would be what I'd recommend if you didn't want walnut. Um, Now, your first time around, you could get fancy and go to an exotic. I would be careful, though, trying out an exotic in a chair environment for the first time. Though I do use things like mahogany. Um, the concern there is stability of the wood, the ability to support weight. That straight grain wood with very little flat grain look to it. Just that mahogany's got that straight grain. It can have a very clean shear moment that could be troubling. So you got to ensure that you've done a little extra work to make that stuff work for you. I have a chair here that I did make out of mahogany, but I'm always cautious about it when it comes to the integrity of the material itself. So I think for your first time around, I would try to steer clear from some of those, and just stick with a domestic here at this point. But you know, if you have one specific grade or one specific type of wood you want to play around with, shout out. Let me know what you're thinking, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. But Robert, thank you for that that question. Okay, well, let's see what we got. Here's one thing that I do want to make sure we address. One person has given me the feedback that printing off the plans has been a little bit more challenging than I intended. The intention is that you could take the file, the PDF of this plan, and run right down to a print shop, and for under 10 bucks, I think it's about $9 or so, just print off the full scale. One report came back that they were that the actual file itself is like a 1/4 inch bigger than the plotter size, a 24 by 36 that we intended. I'm going to go back and check that file, make sure it's good. But if you're at that point and you're struggling with a decision, do I scale it down or just print it as is? I would just print it as is, because even if something is slightly off, or, gets trimmed off, I think everything is within the boundary of at least a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch off the sides of the print. I would rather you do that than scale. If you are asked, should you scale it to fit, don't do that, because obviously everything's going to be slightly off. You have a slightly smaller chair. In the end, it's probably not that big of a deal, but if you want to be reproducing what we intended, the intention is to print full size. I will revert back to that and double check that, but for those of you who have already attempted that, make sure that you follow through on that without scaling the templates. That would make it a little smaller. All right. That was some question somebody had earlier. Good boy. Gonna need some questions here. This is not meant to be me doing a ton of the demonstration. I'm trying to get all that on the videos. So if those of you who are watching need to ask some more questions, I'm going to step aside and go grab a couple things for demonstration purposes, but don't forget to pose your questions. It looks like at least 3 of you have already gotten a couple out there. Feel free to put any questions on. I'd like to hear from you as far as how far you are. Have you purchased your wood? Have you made any of the jigs, or at least this jig? Have you started cutting out any parts? It's okay if you haven't. I just would like to know where people are at. Maybe I can address any of those direct concerns there. I'm going to grab a couple things. I'll be right back. Post a question for me. What I'm doing right now is just digging out a couple tools in light of the fact that I don't have any specific questions that are being asked. I want to just highlight a couple tools that I think you might need some further knowledge on. So give me a minute here. All right. Again, feel free to post any questions. This is your time. Pretty much everything that I feel is imperative or important to understanding this process, I'm building into the actual videos themselves. So this is extra. So it's I'll go the direction that you lead me when it comes to questions. If you are watching this on the YouTube version, you can jump over to our Google Plus account. Currently on Google Plus under Andy Chidwick. That's where we're having our Q&A session where you can ask the questions. Let me highlight a couple of tools that if you don't already have, I think are going to be important for you to get a hold of. One of the first ones that I think is a great introductory sculpting tool. And I've made mention of these in my tool list. If you haven't downloaded that tool list, make sure you check that out, because that's where I highlight most of the tools you'll need. The first one I want to talk about is this microplane. They're relatively inexpensive. This is a great starting tool for the sculptural world. It's not the same as the old Sureforms that were around from long ago. It's a little bit more refined product. It's a little bit more refined cut action on this. And to be honest, I've been using this for many years of doing the sculptural work before I even found some more advanced tooling. So this was kind of my go-to set. I've got a flat version and a round version. You can get the microplane. It's M-I-C-R-O-P-L-A-N-E. You can get that at most of your woodcraft stores, the Rocklers, all that kind of stuff. And they sell them as a little kit. The handle, the pocket handle, and a couple interchangeable profiles on here. I'll tell you this, I don't use the pointed profile. I have no real need for that in what I do currently, though I have used them sometimes. Generally speaking, they're just not the right shape I'm looking for. I use the flat as my outside round, and I use the round profile as my inside transitions. So this would be the tool I would highly recommend in terms of price point, not too hard to get into. All right? As far as the sculptural world, though, I have just fallen in love with these tools. These are the Pattern Maker's files. These files are just brilliant. I don't know that I actually made direct reference to these in my tool list. I made that tool list a while ago, so I may have not added this. I think this is important for you guys to take a look at. And I'm sure I'll have talking about this a number of times in my videos, but you might want to be having a heads up here. This is going to be coming here real soon. The Pattern Maker's files you can get from a number of different manufacturing companies. The one that I'm in love with is the one from the Auriou company. It's a French-made. It's spelled A-U-R-I-O-U, and it's got the flat surface, the round profile, and the tapered tip. This guy, it's a 7-inch long, 13 grain. This is the one I use. Now, you don't have to specifically get that one. They have a whole lineup of them. A little bit wider might be nice. You can get a little bit more surface area. Your time sculpting is a little bit less. I like the smaller profile because I can get into a little bit more detail and work some tighter transitions. But these are really expensive tools. So if money's an issue, this may be a little bit out of budget. I'll just tell you, it's definitely over $100 for this tool. Check out the Lee Valley company. I think they're representing it. You can find them on the website under Lee Valley or Veritas, and look for the ARIO pattern makers files. Right. The other one I want to highlight that I discovered this year at the woodworking shows is a similar but slightly different version. This also is a pattern makers file, but this one is by the Gramercy Tool Company. I think you can look them up under tools for working wood. Really nice, same concept. Both of these are hand-stitched files. So they work in different directions here. It's not based on handedness, so I can go with or against the grain. It's all good. This one's a coarse version. It's a little wider face to it with a little bit more an abrupt chisel point or tip point. Either one of these brands are going to be great. I would say this one's probably about 90% as effective, but about half the cost. So not a bad option if money's tight. You might want to check into these. All right. No, looks like we got a couple of answers. So David, David says he's finishing up some turning projects that are overdue. Plans to start making these jigs soon. Now that the warmer weather is here, sort of. I'll be shopping for lumber over the weekend. That's great. You know what, David, you're probably in the same boat that most people who are signed up for this. We all kind of rolled off of winter, and we have commitments are commitments. I get that. We came from the woodworking shows tour, and I couldn't wait to get home to get this ball rolling here. All I want to do is just encourage you to just keep pushing forward and making these things happen. Whatever it is you're making in the shop, keep being passionate about it. I'm excited that you're working on some training projects. I do want to say, for those of you who are turners and you're exploring the woodworking world of sculptural woodworking, you're going to have an added resource and benefit in the fact that everything you're going to learn about the sculptural world does apply to your turning world. There is a whole new world that you can create in terms of off-centered or asymmetrical designs in the sculptural world. I'm super excited for you who have a little turning skills that you might want to be kind of thinking as you learn how we build a chair and how we do these specific projects with the sculptural world. You're going to be taking that knowledge base and applying it to the rest of your work. So good luck to you. Let me know how that goes, David. I'm excited to see you get out there and get your wood. So let's see, I just answered that question. Okay. All right, how are we going? Y'all are here. Michael. Yeah, this is not going to work for me in the future. I think I'm going to need to work for a tablet. Michael, your question. Any recommendations on an angle grinder for carving? A brand, a motor, or even the size of it? That's a great question. In fact, I drug these out here. That was going to be my next thing to talk about. So let me address this. I do have some opinions on the angle grinder. Let's talk about the grinder first. I would highly recommend that if you are purchasing a grinder, that you get this the kind of grinder that has the inline switch, not the side switch. That's what I have over here. A number of brands actually, oops, dropped something. A number of brands have the side switch and the inline switch, so it's not based on a brand. They have those as both options. So no matter what you get, it's going to be a little bit more, but get the inline switch. Now, Milwaukee has proven to be the brand of choice for me on this specific grinding issue. This because they have the most stout and quality motor for what I've experienced. I've gone through a lot of grinder motors, specifically the ones that have the side carrier switch like this. The problem here is that the sawdust will come in and clog up our switch. it literally will foul that switch up because the motor, as it's spinning, it's drawing the air through the housing up in here, and there's one of the openings right next to where that switch is, and so it will foul that switch up in a heartbeat, especially some cheaper versions of it. Plus, this, trying to fiddle around finding that switch when this thing's grinding can be problematic when it comes to our safety. So, though I still have some of these from some earlier purchases, I'm waiting for them to die a slow death here so I can upgrade to something a little bit nicer. So, practically speaking, I'm a big fan of the inline switch. It works for a variety of benefits for me, both for quick, easy on and off, but it also, when I turn it on, actually, I don't have my power right here for the moment, but when I turn it on, I can turn this on and actually run up the speed of the grinder head and then let go, and it automatically shuts off the moment I let go or starts its rundown. And I can use that in the rundown mode when the grinder is slowly losing its RPM, and I can actually do a little bit of detail work with that. I'll probably show you that in one of my videos as a technique is concerned. Now, I think the question though is, well, it's about angle grinder. The one thing that you don't want to do is just get something super cheap. I've picked up some real cheap brand ones from some off-market whatever, and I had one lasted me literally 2 days. It was such a bad investment. It just was just junk. So get something with a good name brand. I really would recommend the Milwaukee in this case. Now, I will be highlighting the Festool tool when it comes to the grinding work. And these are kind of two different animals. The grinder that we are using here for the more coarse cutter head. I've got two cutter heads that I use. They're kind of doing the same thing. You don't have to have both. I like having both. They have slightly different personalities, so I can get away with different things. I would easily recommend both of these or either one of these. This one is the Arbortech cutter head, and this one is the tungsten carbide grinding wheel from the King Arthur Tool Company. If you get these guys, make sure you get the round profile and the see-through version. It's called the Holy Galahad. This one is my I'm my most familiar with, so I'll be offering more techniques associated with this guy. If you're in a hurry, you want to get it done, this guy's your best bet because it's going to get the job done fast. These are cutter heads, like little planer blades on here, just takes material off real fast. I find that this one's a little more versatile, but puts out more sawdust, so it kind of makes a mess of my shop. My next video is coming out this week. We're going to be talking on chapter 4 and lesson 4 and 5 are coming up, and we're talking about all this, so that's right on the horizon. But just to answer your question, Michael, definitely the Milwaukee as far as the actual grinder head. When it comes to the more aggressive sanding stages, I'm going to point my direction towards the Festool tools. I realize that not everybody can afford them, but I want to at least show you what I think is superior. My philosophy on the tools, generally speaking, get the best tool you can get for the money you got to put into it. But it's not about the tool. It never is about the tool. It's about the technique. You can do pretty much anything with any of these tools as long as you really understand the techniques behind it. I started off with a little DeWalt grinder head with a little fiber flap disc on it, and it did the job. And I learned the hard way the techniques that I needed to do through that carving and sculpting process. That being said, a good tool will certainly make my life easier, and that's what the Festool tools have done for me. So, okay, I think enough on that. Hopefully I answered your question, Michael. All right. So, Robert, I'm going to read yours. It looks like Robert says he's not been able to start his project yet. That's all right. You bought the parts to make the first jig. Looks easy to make. I'm still trying to find the wood. Both Woodcraft and Woodworks in Columbus have limited 8/4 stock that is greater than 9 inches. That's a great. Let me spend a little bit of time on that. No problem that you haven't started. That's great. You're going to be working on that jig and finding your wood. 8-quarter stock, there's just really no way around that at this point. We really have to have 8-quarter stock for this project. Just because of the sculptural world, we need the dynamic of that thicker stock wood. If it wasn't such a waste, some thicker wood yet. But for the most part, 8-quarter stock is that nice compromise between a little bit of thickness to work with, so we can have the profiles we need, and yet it's a relatively common material. However, that being said, you'll be finding that 8-quarter stock is still somewhat of a challenge to find sometimes, or to get something that is worthy of a good project like this. One of the problems you might find is width. Some of these lumber yards, you're only going to get 6 inches or 8-inch wide material, maybe 9 at the max. And I do have this seat board here. I don't think I spent much time in my video talking about it, so let me highlight something here. I am a big fan of a 2-board glue-up. That 2-board glue-up certainly gives me the best look possible. But that's not the only option. In the video, you probably noticed that I was trying to do a layout, and the material I had purchased was only 9-inch material, because I had the same problem. I couldn't get in. There wasn't a board there that was bigger than 9 inches. I think it was like 9 1/4. That's about all I got out of it. This is a 2-board glue-up, and basically 18 inches wide, so 9 inches and 9 inches, right? That's all I got. So I have no room to manipulate the grain according to the concepts that I played around with. There is another option. You could do a 4-board glue-up. When I say 4 boards, I'm not talking about 4 even boards. Right now, this, you would think, okay, a 4-board glue-up, I would have 1, 2 on the left side of the center line, and 3 and 4, the other 2 on the right side of the center line. If you need to opt for a 4-board glue-up, take the 2 middle boards, the ones that have the most real estate, the most visual. In fact, you can almost throw the joint out real close to the outside perimeter of this sculpted seat pan. So when I do a 4-board glue-up, my 2 inner boards are 6 or 7 or even 8 inches wide, and then the outer boards are only like 3 inches wide. One here and one here. Doesn't matter. There's going to be a glue line right over here, but I can obscure that glue line much easier by putting it way out to the edge and having all this real estate for the beauty of this this character of the wood. What I wouldn't want to do is do a 4-board glue-up and have a joint line right down through here and a joint line right down through here, creating a sudden interruption and disturbing the aesthetic beauty of this shaped piece. So that being said, definitely, if you have to move, if you can't find, Robert, if you can't find anything bigger than 9 inches, don't panic. Just make sure that you plan out a 4-board glue-up, and the 2 center ones are a little bit wider, and the 2 outside glue-ups are a little bit shallower, maybe 2.5 inches wide, or 3 inches wide, whatever it takes. Hopefully that makes sense. That's the other option instead of a 2-board glue-up. Great question. I like that. All right, another one for Robert. I remember a website that kind of directs you to wood sources in each state, but I don't remember what it is. Maybe someone on here knows. Yes, I think I know that link. I'm trying to remember it. I'd have to look it up. The Wood Web Finder. Here, let me actually look it up here. Give me a second. Wood Finder, I think it is. Yep. So Robert, you were asking about the source, a direct source for finding wood. One of the options, the one that you're referring to, is called woodfinder.com. I have personally been to that site practically 100 times, but I've yet to purchase directly from it. So I have no personal experience from it. The thing that I would highly recommend when it comes to finding wood source, this seems to be the mystery that everybody wants to, where do you get your wood from? Where do you get your wood from? It's a challenge because wood source is not always easy to find, especially something of a special nature. I would be happy to, and I will post a number of links of sources that I work with. A number of them are in the Pacific Northwest because that's where I moved here from. We lived, it was about 10 years ago that we moved, but we lived up in the Portland, Oregon area. So I've got a number of contacts up there that I tap into. They're great. But the one you were talking about, Robert, is woodfinder.com, I think, and that might be a place to locate some special wood sources. I think I answered that, hopefully. Oops, where am I? Tim. All right, Tim, you are mentioning the species Red Grandis, R-E-D, Red Grandis, G-R-A-N-D-I-S. To be honest, I've never heard of that wood. I would love, you might want to shoot me an email, and this is the type of question that might come up in the future on our forum that once we get that live will be a great resource for people to cross-reference with you. The concern I would have on anything that's unique, if you've ever used the wood before, what kind of environment you're going to have in your shop. Is it something that you might have an allergic reaction to? Is it anything that you feel comfortable having used before? Those kinds of things. So if you've seen it and you know someone who's used it and their experience has been great, then by all means I'm happy for it. Just be aware that you're dealing with needing about roughly 20 board feet, and that's being fairly generous per chair. If you are doing a set, I should mention this. If you're doing a set, you could begin to kind of blend parts a little bit better. For instance, 20 board feet gives me a little bit of confidence that I've got enough to make one chair, but I don't need necessarily 40 board feet to do 2 chairs, or 60 to do 3. You want to kind of by a small percentage start knocking that down. So if I did a set of 6, I don't need 120 board feet. Probably I can probably get away with 100 to 110. Just make sure your supply is readily available. If you get down to the end and you've bought the stock out and you have nothing left and you're down to one part, man, that could really be a bummer. I've been in that situation before and had to really compromise. So just watch out for unique species and what they might do to you later on when it comes to your ability to complete that project. All right, good. I'll look it up. Red Grandis sounds exotic, so I don't know anything about it though. Great. All right, David, you're giving me some additional things here to look at. The RAO rasps are great. Leaf Valley also carries, oh yeah, I have heard the Longier, which are also hand-stitched, that you own both and love them. Great. I guess the real question, David, is the Longier, L-O-N-G-I-E-R, are they comparable price-wise? Are they less? Are they more? It's a brand I don't have or haven't used, so that would be good to know. If you want to post that so people are able to help out, maybe making a good choice on what they get into. I would highly recommend that you, if you are able to put a post up here with maybe a link. That'd be great. Good stuff. Okay, I think we did that one. No problem, Dave. Okay, we have gotten through some of that. So we talked a little bit about the grinders. If you have more questions on those, I'm happy to answer that. We talked about some of these hand tools. I'll put these into action a little bit more on the next couple live sessions. This is probably redundant for most people, but please make sure that you have a good set of calipers. I'm going to be making you use these a lot in some of the joinery stages coming up here real soon. And I could see easily that some people just assuming they got something and then not having this available. So I don't really care what you get. I'm not specific to any brand of caliper right now. Just go down to your hardware store and get something. Half the time I don't even turn them on. I just use it as an actual measuring device. But I could see some people coming up short when they were looking for a set of calipers and can't find it. Make sure you have those. Another slightly abstract tool that you might want to look into. A couple years ago, I was wandering through a woodcraft store. I think I was over in the Portland, Oregon area, and I found these little Japanese. They're just short little files. They're a completely different product, and I don't know a ton about them. Let me get up to a camera view a little closer so you can see them. These little Japanese files. The cut on them is a little bit different. They've got these cut straight across, and then these angles coming in terms of breaking up the each of the ridge. I actually go to these a lot for real tight work. They're a little hard to hold on to sometimes, but for working into tight corners, I can kind of just nibble away at some rough stock material. There's a number of times I need to get a lot of material out fast, but I'm in a tight corner. I don't have a lot of room to stroke through that, and these have been a possible option. Now, I'm not going to talk about these as part of our normal repertoire in my actual videos because they're a little abstract, and I just honestly don't feel like people need to automatically go out and get these. But for those of you who are interested in these are little Japanese mill files. They're about 4 inches long, round profile and flat profile. I just thought you might be interested in it. You can look up on Woodcraft or just go to the Woodcraft stores, and I'm sure you can see those. Make sure you have a marking knife and a good square. And for those of you who haven't been in furniture making, you might not be aware of this tool, but it's a wheel marker. I use this a lot. I tend to go over to this one over a scratch marker. I like the wheel marker because of the bearing surface on it. It's a smaller bearing surface, and I can follow unique profiles. I'll show you here. There's going to come a time when you're going to need to create a parallel shape. We'll bandsaw a shape on one edge here, and we would use this tool to mark a given distance off of that parallel surface to create a follow line. Based on a certain size that leg might be at that point. So this is a pretty important tool that you'll need. I'm again the marking wheel over the scratch, or the marking gauge over the scratch marker. Right. And let me address a couple more quickies here that I think are important. I didn't spend a ton of time yet on this, but you probably need to be in the market for these here soon, is the set of router bits that we're going to use for this joinery. One I have in here, I haven't taken out yet. One I have in here is from the Amana tool company. Again, let me get close. The Amana tool company creates these double bearing with an offset cutter head for a rabbet bit. This is going to put a 1/2 inch offset on here. This is the one we're going to use for the joint that I'm demonstrating. You can do a smaller offset. It could be 3/8 or whatever, but in this case, this one is manufactured as a 1/2 inch. The critical ingredient here is that this diameter is twice the size of the radius bit that we're going to use to match. So in this case, it's 1.5 inches, and the roundover is going to be 3/4 of an inch. You'll see a lot of information on the website or on the videos about this. Really going to spend a lot of time so everyone understands this. But just as a heads up, this is kind of one of those you got to have bits. Now, there are alternate options, but we have to have some sort of rabbit bit, basically. Not all rabbit bits are made the same. So if you go down to your typical, you might already have an 1 3/8 router bit, a rabbit bit, and if you don't want to spend any money on it, you want to stick with that 1 3/8 or 1 1/4. Let's give you an example. If you had an 1 1/4 rabbit bit, excuse me, your roundover would be half that size, so 5/8. This one is 1 1/2, so this is 3/4 of an inch, right? So this is exactly half the size or half the diameter. Again, that's very important. So you're going to be in the market for a nice matching set, and make sure that you protect these well. These are the kind of bits that you don't want to be using for a lot of other things, because once they get dull and you sharpen it, you've lost the diameter, right? We don't have the actual shape anymore that we originally started off with. We need to have these very specifically matching. So set these aside and protect them well, and they'll last you a long time. You can clean them, hone them, make sure that they're ready to go. But you've got to protect these, or else you're going to pick them up one day and it's going to be chipped or dull, and you're going to want to go sharpen it, and you change the radius to a point where they won't match anymore. Again, I'll spend some more time on this in the actual videos that you'll see here. But just a heads up that this is something you should be buying. Well, it is. What time is it? Oh wow, 7:30. I think I'll probably call it right now, unless you have any other specific questions. I just wanted to at least have a successful first time around on a live session. A few things I'm learning from this, so by all means, we'll improve our ability and our technology to make this better for you guys. I hope I answered some questions for you and give you some things to think about. For those of you who are just starting your project, by all means, go for it. I'll be there to help you. Just reach out with an email or send me a picture if you got something you're struggling with. Get that wood and let the wood acclimate to your shop a little bit before you just tackle right into it. But take it one step at a time. You can do it, and this is going to be a great project for you to learn. So I think I'm going to sign off unless there's anybody shooting out any last-minute questions, and we'll do this again here real shortly. I've scheduled one in a couple weeks. I think our live chat session is now on the schedule, but I might even offer a couple of extra ones here as people get going, just in case you need a little bit of extra push to get this project going. Thank you all for your patience as we've built this site. There were a few major glitches on the registration stuff in the front end, and we're at a point where we truly believe that all of that is passed. So if you're having any problems still, let us know, because we don't want you hanging out there not getting any access to these videos. All right, guys, thanks for spending the time here with me this evening. We'll have some fun as we build this project together. We'll catch you guys soon. Thanks.